Jake Morrison was elbow-deep in a diagnostics panel when he heard it. Not the hum of coolant pumps, not the clatter of cargo drones, not the endless mechanical chorus of Gamma 7's maintenance bay, a sound that didn't belong. A soft, strained groan. Jake froze, fingers hovering above the console. Gamma 7 wasn't luxury, but people didn't just collapse in service corridors. If someone was hurting badly enough to make noise here, something had gone wrong. He followed the sound toward the outer airlocks. She was slumped against a cargo container, positioned carefully in the narrow space between stacked crates out of the main traffic flow. That alone told him she hadn't fallen by accident. At first glance, she looked like another unlucky drifter. Travel-worn clothes, small pack, someone who'd stretched resources too thin for too long. Second glance, things didn't line up. The fabric of her clothing was high-grade synth, scuffed, torn in places, but still holding its structure. Her boots were built for endurance, not cheap protection. And then he saw her ears elegantly pointed. Athetherian. Jake slowed, crouching at a respectful distance. "Hey," he said quietly. "You hurt?" Her eyes opened, pale green, sharp even through exhaustion. Intelligent, alert. "Water," she whispered. Her voice had a musical cadence roughened by dehydration. Jake didn't hesitate. He passed her his personal bottle. She drank slowly, controlled like someone who understood limits. That surprised him. "I'm Jake," he said once she finished. "Cargo hauler." "You stuck here?" "Lyra," she replied, giving only a name. "My transport failed. I've been walking 2 days." Jake studied her again. 2 days in this sector without severe exposure damage didn't add up. "You're either tougher than you look," he said, "or luckier than most." A faint smile. "Perhaps both." She studied him now. "Are you the type who asks questions, or the type who helps?" Jake exhaled once. "I help first. Questions come later if they're needed." Something shifted in her expression. "Relief, maybe." He offered his arm. "Come on. I've got food, a clean bunk, and a medical scanner." As she accepted, Jake had the oddest feeling, like this wasn't a random encounter. Like this moment mattered. Jake didn't know it yet, but helping her was the first step into a life he never planned for. Lyra moved with fluid control, despite her condition, too. Smooth for someone who'd simply run out of luck. That didn't make Jake suspicious. Frontier space taught you that people were complicated. On the walk to his ship, she watched everything. His posture, his surroundings, the rhythms of the station. "You're inviting a stranger aboard your ship," she said. "That's risky." Jake shrugged. "You don't survive 2 days out there and decide to rob the first guy who offers water. And you trust that?" "I trust patterns. People tell you who they are if you pay attention." "What do you see in me?" Jake considered. Educated, capable, running from something, but grateful, and not dangerous to me. She was quiet a long moment. "You're perceptive. And trusting," he added. Frontier life forces both. Aboard the steady course, Lyra immediately noticed details most people missed. Maintenance welds, cargo balance, life support redundancies. You maintain this yourself. Mostly shipyards for the hard stuff. The medical scan confirmed dehydration and exhaustion, nothing worse. "Where were you heading?" Jake asked. "The core systems," she said carefully. "Eventually." He nodded, not pressing. Over a simple meal, her questions revealed sharp understanding of trade routes. Colonial economics, political pressures, way beyond an average trader. When she finally asked why he helped her, Jake answered honestly. 8 years ago, I was stranded like you. Someone helped me when they didn't have to." Lyra listened without interrupting. "People forget how fast circumstances change," Jake finished. "Kindness shouldn't require justification." Her expression softened. "That's uncommon." Later, as lights dimmed and the ship settled into night cycle, Jake realized something unsettling. He trusted her, not because she was harmless, but because she was honest about what she wasn't saying. Jake didn't realize he'd just passed a test he never knew he was taking. 3 days later, Lyra was stronger. Too strong. Their conversations stretched from colonial politics to theoretical logistics models. She deflected personal questions smoothly, but her intelligence was undeniable. "You run supply routes most corporations avoid," she said one morning. "Why?" "Because people live there," Jake replied. "Reliability matters more than profit margins." She made notes in unfamiliar symbols, similar to Athetherian script but denser. Reputation is currency, Jake continued. Lose everything else but keep trust? Someone will give you another chance. Lyra went still at that. Ripple effects, she murmured. One action shaping generations. Jake raised an eyebrow. You've thought about this before. It's professionally relevant. When he mentioned expanding operations if money weren't an issue, her interest sharpened. And if resources were unlimited? Serve more colonies. Build systems that last. That night, she thanked him, not for food or shelter, but for treating her like a person. A week after Gamma 7, as Jake prepared for a routine run, Lyra made a proposal. I need discreet transport. I can pay well. How well? Well enough to change your life. Jake hesitated. Why me? Because you don't chase power, she said. You respect it. Before he could ask more, proximity alarms screamed. Golden ships filled the viewport. Lyra stood beside him, no longer hiding. My security arrived early, she said calmly. Lyra, Jake whispered. Who are you? She met his eyes. Empress Lyra Vellenden. Jake's world tilted. The woman he saved wasn't running from danger. She was the center of it. The golden ships didn't dock. They waited. Jake noticed it immediately. The way their formation held distance. How no boarding parties launched. How weapons stayed powered but idle. Military discipline. Ceremonial restraint. Security, Jake repeated. That's a lot of it. They weren't sent for you, Lyra said. Not yet. That didn't help. A secure channel opened on Jake's console without triggering his ship's alarms. That alone meant authority far above port control. A tall Athetherian male appeared on screen, clad in formal command armor etched with sigils Jake didn't recognize. Your vessel has rendered aid to her sovereignty, the officer said. You will power down and prepare for escort. Jake glanced at Lyra. Is this where they take me apart to see if I'm a threat? If they intended that, she replied calmly, you'd already be dead. Comforting. In a terrifying way, docking clamps engaged with a precision that bordered on reverence. As the airlock cycled, Jake felt something tighten in his chest, not fear exactly, but the sense that his life had just passed a point of no return. The honor guard didn't restrain him. That was worse. They escorted him into a chamber that felt less like a warship and more like a mobile. Capital arched ceilings, ambient light tuned for Athetherian physiology, and officers who watched him like one watches a live variable. Lyra stepped forward, posture changing completely. No hesitation, no uncertainty. You recovered me inefficiently, she said. The commander bowed, deeply. We acted on incomplete intelligence. Your Radiance. She turned back to Jake. This is Commander Sailreth. He believes you are either very brave or very stupid. Jake exhaled, still deciding. Sailreth studied him. You were not coerced? No. You were not compensated? Fed her. Gave her a bunk. A murmur rippled through the officers. Sailreth's eyes narrowed. You aided the Empress of the Athetherian Compact. Without leverage. Jake shrugged. She needed help. Silence. Lyra's voice softened. That is why he matters. Jake didn't like the way that sounded. Helping her had made Jake valuable, and valuable people didn't stay free for long. The interrogation never came. Instead, Jake was given quarters. Clean, secure, guarded, but politely. That more than anything unsettled him. Lyra visited hours later without ceremony. She dismissed the guards with a gesture that brooked no argument. I owe you the truth, she said. Jake folded his arms. That'd be nice. She explained quickly, efficiently. The plague that had fractured her empire. The internal factions that saw her survival as weakness. The coup that had forced her into exile with minimal protection. They couldn't kill me openly, she said. So they tried to make me disappear. And I accidentally ruined that plan. Yes. Jake paced the room. So what happens now? That depends on you. He stopped. That's a dangerous sentence. Lyra met his gaze. You can be returned to your route with compensation and memory seals. Memory seals? Selective, painless. Jake stared at her. Or you stay. Doing what? She hesitated, just a fraction. Helping me rebuild something that was broken long before the coup. Jake laughed once, sharp. You're asking a cargo hauler to step into imperial politics. I'm asking a human, she corrected, who chooses people over profit. That doesn't make me special. It makes you rare. Jake thought of fringe colonies waiting on shipments, of the life he understood, of how simple things had been a week ago. And if I say no? Lyra nodded. I will respect it. That surprised him. Most rulers don't, he said. I'm trying to build something different. Jake sighed. Let me guess. If I say yes, there's no going back. Lyra didn't answer, which was answer enough. Jake realized the choice wasn't between danger and safety, but between comfort and consequence. Jake requested one thing before deciding. To see it, he said. The damage. The stakes. No speeches. Lyra agreed. They traveled to the border worlds. First, the places forgotten, by both rebels and loyalists. Infrastructure patched together by desperation. Medical centers running on borrowed power. Supply lines held together by favors and timing. Jake recognized it immediately. This wasn't an empire problem. It was a logistics problem. You centralize too much, he said after 3 days. One disruption cascades everywhere. Lyra watched him carefully. Go on. You don't need a throne right now. You need redundancy, independent hubs, trust networks. Selreth bristled. This is not how empires function. Jake shot him a look. It's how systems survive. They toured another world where food shipments arrived late again. Jake pulled up his own trade maps, overlaying them with compact data. You're protecting prestige routes, he said. Not survival routes. Lyra's breath caught. No one's ever framed it like that, she said quietly. Because most leaders don't think in tonnage and time, Jake replied. They think in symbols. That night, Lyra found him staring out at a dim colony world. If you stay, she said, you will be targeted. Jake nodded. Yeah. You could die. Also, yeah. She waited. He turned to her. But if I leave, this stays broken. A long silence. All right, Jake said finally. I'll help. On one condition. Lyra straightened. Name it. I'm not your subject, he said. I'm your partner. Lyra smiled, slow, genuine. Agreed. Somewhere deep in the fleet, alarms began to sound. Jake had just stepped into the center of a war, and the enemy was already watching. The first assassination attempt came disguised as diplomacy. A delegation from the Inner Compact requested a formal audience. Neutral colors, lawful codes, impeccable credentials. Everything checked out. Too perfectly. Jake noticed the timing first. The convoy arrived exactly as Lyra's. Fleet began rerouting supply. Corridors, his idea. Disruptive, effective, dangerous. They're stalling, Jake muttered, watching fleet telemetry scroll past. Buying time. For what? Selreth asked. Jake didn't answer. He was already tracing probability paths, overlapping political incentives with known insurgent patterns. For a distraction, Jake finally said. Or a decapitation. The meeting chamber was grand, deliberately so. Athetherian architecture. Favored height and distance, power expressed through scale. Jake hated it. Lyra stood at the center, calm and radiant. Every inch the empress they expected her to be. The lead envoy bowed. Your survival has reassured many. Jake didn't like the emphasis. The attack came mid-sentence. Energy dampeners snapped on. Not lethal. Containment grade. Guards froze. Weapons died. Jake's implants screamed warnings as gravity shifted. Localized, controlled. Precision sabotage. Move, Jake shouted, already acting. He grabbed Lyra and dragged her down as the ceiling collapsed inward. Not falling, folding. Jake slammed a portable mass anchor into the floor. A piece of cargo tech never meant for this kind of load. It held. Barely. Security flooded in seconds too late. Smoke cleared. Bodies lay scattered, envoys included. Selreth stared at Jake. That device, how did you deploy it so fast? Jake's hands shook. I ship unstable things for a living. Lyra looked at him differently now. Not as an ally. As a shield. Jake realized the enemy wasn't trying to kill Lyra anymore. They were testing how far he'd go to protect her. The attempt failed. The message did not. Across the compact, transmissions lit up with edited footage. Jake dragging Lyra away from danger. Issuing commands, overriding safeguards. Human interference, the narrative said. Human influence. Human manipulation. They're painting you as the power behind the throne, Selreth said grimly. Jake stared at the screen. I didn't ask for that. They never do. Worlds began hesitating. Supply hubs delayed compliance. A few governors openly questioned Lyra's authority, all because of him. "I'm the problem," Jake said quietly. Lyra didn't deny it. "You are also the reason our civilian survival rates are climbing," she replied. "You've saved millions without firing a weapon." "That doesn't matter in politics." "No," she agreed. "It doesn't." That night, Jake rerouted himself into the compact's logistics core, not to control it, but to open it. Decentralized authority, transparent flow data, shared redundancy maps. He gave Frontier Worlds visibility they'd never had. If the inner factions wanted to control the narrative, Jake would remove their monopoly on information. Within hours, food convoys moved without authorization delays. Medical shipments bypassed ceremonial checkpoints. The system adapted. Fast. Too fast. Lyra watched the cascade unfold. "You're rewriting how the compact functions." Jake leaned back exhausted. "No, I'm letting it function." A warning pinged. Multiple war fleets mobilizing. Not pirates. Compact forces. "They're not coming for you," Sailreth said. Jake swallowed. "They're coming for the idea." Lyra turned to him. "If they force a confrontation—" "I know," Jake said. "They'll make an example." Jake had destabilized an empire without firing a shot, and now it was preparing to bleed to stop him. The standoff happened at Rayless Gate. A choke point system, narrow, predictable, perfect for control. Compact warships formed a wall of steel and plasma, broadcasting lawful authority orders. "Stand down, surrender the human, restore protocol." Jake watched from the command deck, jaw tight. "If I leave," he said, "this ends." "For now," Lyra replied. "And if I stay, they will attack." Jake exhaled slowly. "Then we don't fight them like an empire." Sailreth frowned. "Explain." Jake smiled grimly. "We fight them like a supply chain." He triggered the plan. Fuel shipments stalled, legally. Maintenance windows overlapped. Crews rotated out on schedule. No sabotage, no aggression. Just compliance weaponized. Within hours, the blockade fleet began reporting system strain, reactor inefficiencies, food rationing, medical delays. Not catastrophic, just uncomfortable. The commanders demanded escalation. High command hesitated. Public feeds lit up. "Why?" civilians asked. "Are frontier worlds stable while war fleets are hungry?" The question spread faster than orders. Lyra stepped beside Jake. "They can't shoot their way out of this." "No," Jake said, "because this isn't a rebellion." He looked at the fleet. Its accountability. The first warship powered down its weapons, then another, then 3 more. The blockade fractured, not from force but from refusal. Lyra's voice was quiet. "You just changed how power works." Jake didn't smile. "Then they'll come harder next time." "Yes," she agreed. "And when they do?" Jake met her gaze. "Then we show them what humans do when systems fail." The stars beyond Rayless Gate burned steadily. Watching. The Empire had blinked, but empires never forget humiliation. The retaliation didn't come as fleets. It came as laws. Across the compact, emergency directives activated, trade freezes, jurisdictional seizures, temporary authority suspensions. Human-operated logistics nodes were flagged as strategic risks. Jake watched the cascade in silence. "They're trying to strangle us without firing a shot," Sailreth said. "Frontier colonies first." Lyra's hands clenched behind her back. "They're betting you'll break." Jake shook his head slowly. "They don't understand supply chains." He initiated phase black. Every route he'd ever optimized, every redundancy he'd quietly suggested, every mutual aid agreement between colonies activated simultaneously. Independent haulers rerouted. Farming worlds shared surplus. Repair stations opened bays without asking for authorization. The frontier didn't collapse. It adapted. Within 48 hours, compact core worlds began feeling shortages, minor at first, then noticeable. Not because Jake attacked them, because he stopped propping them up. "You're forcing them to experience what the frontier lives with every day," Lyra said softly. "Exactly," Jake replied. "Delayed medicine, missed parts, uncertainty." A pause. "They'll panic." They did. The Compact Council convened an emergency session. Jake Morrison was officially named a destabilizing non-state actor. Lyra read the declaration once, then tore it in half. When empires lose control, they don't negotiate, they escalate. The strike came from inside. A trusted administrator rerouted a relief convoy, just one, enough to cause a medical crisis on Helion's reach. Children died. The news feeds exploded. Jake saw the footage. Didn't speak for a long time. That wasn't us, Sailrith said urgently. Jake's voice was flat. Doesn't matter. Lyra approached him carefully. They crossed a line. So will we, Jake said. He accessed the Compact's own audit framework, the one never meant to be used publicly. He didn't leak secrets. He published patterns, decision chains, delay points, names, not accusations, just signatures. Here, Jake said quietly, highlighting a node. This wasn't a mistake. It was authorized friction. Within hours, citizens across the Compact saw it. Not propaganda. Receipts. Governors began resigning. Fleet commanders refused orders. The Compact Council tried to revoke Lyra's authority. The response came from the Athetheran Celestial Navy. Not weapons. Broadcast. Lyra stood before the galaxy, not in ceremonial regalia but in simple robes. I will not rule an empire that survives by starving its own people, she said. Silence followed. Then something unprecedented. Frontier worlds pledged to her, not the Compact. Supply networks realigned. The empire split, not by violence but by values. Jake sat back, exhausted. This was never supposed to go this far. Lyra looked at him. History never is. The galaxy had chosen sides, and Jake had become the line between them. The aftermath was quieter than Jake expected. No parades, no celebrations, just work. New charters, new logistics frameworks, shared governance councils where frontier voices mattered. Jake refused titles, accepted responsibility. He became the thing the Compact feared most, a standard. Years later, standing on a rebuilt Gamma 7, now a thriving hub, Lyra joined him at the observation deck. You could have walked away, she said. Jake smiled faintly. Someone once didn't walk past me when I needed help. Lyra looked at the bustling station. You turned kindness into infrastructure. Someone had to. She faced him. Not as empress, not as ruler. As a person. The galaxy listens to you now, she said. What will you tell it? Jake considered the stars. That power isn't about control, he said. It's about making sure systems don't forget the people inside them. Lyra nodded. Humanity's reputation changed that day. Not conquerors. Not saviors. Fixers. The ones who step in when systems fail and refuse to leave until everyone eats. And across the stars, whenever a world stabilized against impossible odds, the saying spread. If a human is involved, someone remembered to care.